Good afternoon. Welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting. I'm Gretchen Hanchett, Vice Chair of Planning and Development. I'd like to start with roll call.
Mrs. Root, Mrs. Hanchett,
Here.
Mr. Barnes,
Present.
Mr. Curran, Mr. Havey, Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mr. Ricky,
Here.
Mrs. Ricketts Wales.
Here.
And Mr. Harris. 5 present, 3 absent.
Next, I need the approval of the minutes from December 20th, 2023.
Ricky will move.
Ricketts Wales will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any, oops. Okay, next I need the approval for January 10th, 2024.
Healy will move it. Ricky second.
Any comments or changes or adjustments? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I need the approval of the minutes from January 17th, 2024.
Healy will move it.
Ricketts Wales will second. Any comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is Rita Solbeck Lynch, Employment and Training Program Director. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I think you've all had a chance to read my report before today, so you can entertain any questions at the end. A few highlights are in our business services. The job developer and business service rep is Matt O'Brien, and he will be going to Houghton University tomorrow with Mallory Short to talk about job opportunities in Allegheny County. And there were also other businesses. I think 72 different employers will be there. And so he will be there also to talk about Allegheny County jobs, but also to talk to the businesses about coming to our high school career fair in April at Genesee Valley.
Very nice.
And our job board, in addition to posting available positions, we also are posting the civil service exams. So when HR posts an exam, we also put it on Facebook as well. So that's been getting them, hopefully, some more applications than we normally would get. And I think waiving the fee helped a little bit, but I'm not really sure. I think Bobby would have those statistics. We do have one youth enrolled in training that I didn't have listed, and that person is taking phlebotomy through BOCES. And with the 98 adults and dislocated workers received in January, a lot of those were for job referrals.
Okay. Is there any questions for Rita? Legislator Healy?
Thank you. Now, according to the paper, and it was based on state statistics, unemployment was up for Allegheny County. Is that correct?
It was up a little bit. There wasn't anything major, no major changes. Just
Okay.
like a few points.
And the only other comment I'd like to make is I'd like to thank you for your continued efforts on behalf of our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Legislator Barnes?
Yeah, just a clarification. So December was 4.9% unemployment in Allegheny County.
Yes.
And what was if I gathered it correctly, you have some information as far as January?
Not yet. It should be out. If it's not out this week, it'll be out next week.
So you don't have any idea whether it's up, down, or about the same?
No, but I will know shortly. I can share that with you when I have it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, next I have a request to fill
Okay.
a senior employment and training counselor. This is a full-time job. This position is fully federal funded through the WIOA Act. And it takes about a year to learn this very technical position that works with adults and dislocated workers. And we have money for their training and follow-up. And unfortunately, Tyler had a very exciting new opportunity for her. And so she accepted that position with the health department. So now I would like to fill it.
Okay.
Healy will move it.
Thank you.
Ricky second.
Any questions?
Comment, if I might be able to.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you, Rita, for following all the proper procedures there and having all the required signatures at the bottom of along our chain of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. The system works really well. We take it to HR, they take it to Carissa, then it comes to committee, so teamwork.
Yes,
Very
thank you.
good, thank you. Any other questions? Legislator Barnes?
Yeah, I was reading through your stuff. You're still looking for a place to call home.
Yes.
Any ideas as to when that might come about?
I believe that's up to the Space Committee and administration. But we have had people in the building looking at our roof.
So what is if the administrator could give us a brief idea of what's going to happen here?
That's part of what we hired Hunt Engineers to do the space needs consulting for, so we're just starting to talk about that. I think we have a meeting with them, I believe tomorrow, to start those conversations about which departments have the most urgent needs. I believe employment training does, and then trying to find what space we have available to put them into.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is Keir Durlam, Director of Planning. Welcome.
Afternoon, everybody. Small crowd today. In the planning report, there's a lot of information. I'm just going to skip down to let you know that Eagle View provided a training this past week it's aimed at the assessors to teach them how to use one of the modules that allows them to compare the 2006 properties to the 2023 properties. There's a lot of changes because it's been so long. And it'll take those guys quite a while to sift through all that. We had at least 3 of the assessors on the line, but those 3 actually represent more than half the towns. So they were the ones that cover a lot of properties or a lot of municipalities. And so we will probably run another training, offer it. We've also got a recording of that webinar that has been sent out to the remainder of the assessors. And in the future, at some point, we'll do a training for the code enforcement guys because it's a slightly different situation for them. But they could also find the same data useful to track down places that may or may not have actually filed permits to do the construction they did, and work on making sure things are in compliance. So we're working with Eagle View, the Real Property Office, GIS coordinator, Russ Hall. We've all been tag teaming this effort. Also related to GIS, the needs assessment is well underway. I believe that almost all the departments have been interviewed by the consultant, and they are now working to compile a lot of that information that they've collected to determine which applications are appropriate for each department to consider in the future and lay out where we're going in the future on these GIS pieces.
I have a quick question. As far as the workshop with the assessors and that, are they excited about having this tool or overwhelmed or a mixture?
It was in a webinar format,
Okay.
so we couldn't comment or see each other.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to all collected in a room. So
Right.
I don't know, yeah. But one of the interesting things will be we will be able to see which assessors are actually using the tool and the number of properties they're reviewing and
Right.
moving on and updating their values and such. So after 6, 8, 12 months, we're going to know which communities are actually being proactive and doing that work. So
And that will give you information to see where we can assist in them utilizing it a little bit better.
Yep.
Thank you. It's kind of an exciting program there. Okay?
It should, I mean, as legislators, you should be, you're always interested in gaining tax, and basing it on the actual value. And both of these programs are working to help the assessment be more accurate and to also hopefully be more safe in the case of code enforcement, that properties are being built the way they should be. So these are both very proactive efforts to bring us into the 21st century.
Very good. Thank you.
I'd like to congratulate Stacy Beardsley. She's a graduate of the Leadership Allegheny program at the end of January. That's a 9-10 month program that's run through Houghton University, and it's a good program. I believe they had about 14, 15 graduates this year. And so that's good, and I highly recommend that if you're aware of any business or offices out there that may have succession planning concerns and they want to help create leaders of tomorrow, that encourage them to consider this program, because it is open. It's not just for one group.
Yep, the program is a great program. They've had hundreds of people go through it.
Yep.
Started out through the county chamber.
That's correct. And I believe they're starting the program in April, so the time is now to nominate candidates to go through the next class.
It's a great program. I'm glad it lives on.
Yep.
Successfully lives on. Thank you.
There's a lot of different planning projects going on, which you can read in the report. I wanted to note that Census 2030, we're already talking about Census 2030. There's steps that are taken in these next few years that lay the groundwork for the work that is finally done that particular year. And so the department's already looking at, any steps that we can do, improve our data back around so that that'll be available when it comes around. So stay tuned.
Kira, I have a quick question about the census. I know that when we ran our last census, it was during COVID.
Yes.
And it was always a concern that we really didn't get the needed information and how accurate our census numbers were.
Still the same.
Yeah.
It's, I can't say exactly, but I would say the 2020 census is not one of the better accurate census ever done for so many reasons.
Right.
There's certain ones that are known to be good ones and certain ones that are known to be not very good ones. 1980 is renowned for being one of the worst ever done, and others up and down like anything. So hopefully the 2030 will be done more effectively.
Thank you.
Mr. Barnes is raising his hand.
Oh, sorry. Legislator Barnes?
Yes, I'd like a little more information or a little more detail as to what's a good census and why it is good or why another one is not so good. And you say that the last one was not so good. What were the
Right.
reasons?
Well, part of the reason that was known is that the funding cycle was late to get the money into the system to actually hire people and get the products put together and do lay the groundwork. It was all way behind, and there were these graphs that came out in 2018, 2019, and they said normally we would have had this much funding by now, and we're still down here, and the activities were fewer. And then just as this thing was supposed to kick off, COVID hit, and they also went from a paper ballot, if you will, or survey, they went to an online survey. And so getting the word out was challenging, getting workers. All these things combined ended up with just sort of the perfect storm of not very great
Yep.
data.
So how did they do an online census if not everybody's online?
Well, and normally what they do is they send out the card and they ask you to log in. And if you do, your secret decoder key, tells them that you did your job. And they'll send you that a few times. And then eventually they send a person out to your address to get that information. Well, they didn't have enough people because of COVID and other issues. So they really they couldn't blanket the country the way they did historically.
So my final question is, the 2020 census for Allegheny County, how accurate do you say that, think that is, and if it was off, which way was it off?
I think we're undercounted.
By how much?
I don't have a number, but it's probable. The statistic that's the most confounding is the housing statistic, where they indicate we lost 2,000 houses and we lost 2,000 people. So essentially, it looks like every single person put a house on their back and took it with them, which just doesn't make any sense to me. But so that's sort of the story there. These are the things you look at and you're like, that just, doesn't really make sense. So,
Thank you very much.
yep.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right.
I would note that we've only had a few applications for our secretary position, and getting a qualified person to apply has not moved forward very well. So if you happen to know anybody that has a few years of experience and you think would be a good fit in our office, please push them to call me, fill out the civil service app, get in the system, because we'd really love to interview somebody and put them in the job, but right now we're kind of jammed. Moving on to tourism, we are winding right up to the total eclipse on April 8th. There's a whole page on it here. I won't delve into it, but you want to get your glasses and do the viewing safely. And there is some subcommittee work going on to prepare for the eclipse, from both a public safety position and somewhat from the tourism side. But at this point, I think we are aware of two events in the county. I believe one's in Houghton and one's at Swain. And a few of the campgrounds have announced that they're opening early so that they can accommodate. And so we're preparing for that. And I think that's about it. Do you have any questions?
All right. Thanks, Kara. Okay, next on our agenda is Tim Boyd, Director of Economic Development.
Good afternoon. You had a copy of my report. Just to give you a couple of updates, we know that our applications have been received by the Appalachian Regional Commission. We've had correspondence with them. Right now, they've asked a number of questions related to the water and sewer line that we've involved both the IDA, our local, our DPW office, planning office, a number of folks answering those questions. So we know that is in process. We also received some questions about our countywide sewer study that Kira's prepared responses for that as well. So we know those are moving, and we're just now awaiting the official okey dokey that we can proceed with that funding. That's, again, in the neighborhood of about $1.3 million. I did receive this afternoon an announcement from Senator Schumer's office that they are now accepting applications for congressional funding projects. We have been working with Delta in conjunction with them to work with both Schumer's office, Gillibrand's office, respectfully, Senators Schumer and Gillibrand and Representative Langworthy's office to compile those requests and make sure that we get some projects in for their consideration. Still awaiting the funding on, from Congressman Langworthy's office. We anticipate that that congressional activity will happen in the first week of March. The other thing that we are doing in conjunction with our study for the strategic plan, I have reached out to Chautauqua, Lewis, and Genesee counties. They have all agreed to meet with us and share their experiences with us, and would be requesting that this committee hold the dates of March 5 and 6 and 19 as potential dates that we would be able to have a Zoom conference with them to hear of their experiences, the positives and negatives, what's worked, what hasn't worked, why we should, why we shouldn't, give you an opportunity to answer those questions. I'll be putting dates out to them and looking for times. Hopefully, we'll be looking at a 45 to 90-minute block, so we could do 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and set a couple of those. Hate to ask you to set aside that much time, but it is important, and we are asking the indulgence of other counties to assist us with this process. So if you can look at that, that would be great, and then we can move forward from there.
That's the March 5th, 6th, and 19th,
Correct.
and it's, what are the counties again?
Lewis, Genesee, and Chautauqua. And they are all at varying degrees of involvement in the process of setting up this type of a structure and economic development organization, and looking at some of the things that have come out of the Camoines study. So we will also be on March 26th, I believe, we will have our first session where we'll be inviting the public to, as a mixer, to review the plan and also provide an overview of some success stories we've had in our economic development opportunities through the microenterprise grant. That will be at the Palmer Opera House in Cuba. And I believe the time, I'll have to confirm the time with you, but I know that's the date that we're looking at, and open to the public. So those are the highlights of my report. I don't know if you have any other questions.
Okay, any other questions? Okay,
We
thanks,
do
Tim.
have an MOE.
Yep.
The request to extend our agreement with Delta Development from March 21 to 2024 through February 28, 2025. The agreed upon monthly service fee of $7,500 per month, plus any other reasonable and ordinary expenses. The money is in the budget, and they have been a valuable partner for us as we've moved forward in the past year, seeking both federal and state funding.
Healy, I'll move it.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Swales will second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is Dr. Craig Clark, IDA Development Agency. Welcome.
You have my report. Before I forget, because I might, that mixer that Tim just mentioned is 4:30 to 6 on that date.
Good.
And the panel discussion will be at 5 o'clock. There'll be Lundstrom will be there from a large company. Hardy Penwrights will be there from a microenterprise grant perspective, and White Imprints will be there since they're in Cuba, and they're doing very well. So
What was the date?
the 26th of March.
Thank you.
I think it'll be a great evening. Great place to have an event as well. Are there any questions? The only real highlights I have are something about the CBDG grants, unless you have some questions on anything else. One thing I should mention before it wasn't on here is that both myself and Tim went to the New York State Economic Development Council meeting last week. And that's where we ran into Mark Geis from Chautauqua County and Steve Hyde from Genesee. And they're both IDA directors, but Genesee is the most mature. They've been doing this for 19 years in EDO, and you can't even find their IDA on their website. It's embedded within their whole organization. And if you look at what Genesee has done in the past 19 years, it's pretty impressive. But they're also located in a really good location right between Rochester and Buffalo and on the Thruway. And they get money. Steve's figured out how to get money from both the Finger Lakes and the Western New York region, even though he's only in the Finger Lakes group. So he's very innovative, let's put it that way.
Yep, I look forward to it.
That'll be a good presentation. The only other things I really have to update on the CBDG CARES grant for small business, it keeps going forward. We're in the final stage of getting extension so we can spend all of that money. We have the most recent allocation. I think it's just hitting with the county this week. We'll cutting those checks next week in the $90,000 range. And those have made a real big difference to 21 companies because they're fairly large grants. They're in the $30,000 to $60,000 range. And so it's made a huge difference to some companies that were impacted because of COVID. And we continue to work on the microenterprise grant. As I've noticed, we have 11 projects moving forward. One had dropped out, but we have spent some of that money as well. I don't have too much else. We continue to work on the clean energy projects. The Alley Cat Wind project is still going forward. And the Northland project in Alfred, as far as I know, is still going forward, the large one,
Okay.
in addition to the small project.
Legislator Barnes?
Yes, Gary?
Going over your report, you have a very one sentence about Great Lakes cheese. That facility, when it's abandoned or no one's,
They're talking about moving out by the end
Yeah.
of the year, first quarter next year.
so what possible replacement could go into that facility? I mean, it's,
Well, we've had Cornell down here to look at through
Pardon?
their, Cornell's come down through their Geneva site, and they have some pretty good contacts. Kathy Young had said that they found one company that may be interested. Does not have to be a ag business, but obviously there aren't many facilities around that have been doing and are ready to do food production. So that's a potential, and that's what we've been looking at. And we did go through that facility sometime in December and went through it. And there's some really good spaces yet in there, so I think we can figure that out. Well,
Thank you.
the most interesting thing is Great Lakes Cheese did say, and John was there, that they're more than willing to work with us, but they're not in the phase of marketing it at this stage because it's still their facility, and they could possibly even have a use, but they probably will not. So that's the hard part. You can't really market a facility that's not marketing.
right.
So, but we're still working on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I guess not.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, any old business? New business? Good of the order? Okay, then I call for adjournment.
Ricky, move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.